avoid any interviews outside this courtroom, any photos, any filming. That has to take place either in this courtroom or outside the courthouse. There's other trials in session. We don't want to be disrupting them with that. So, with regard to the sentence.
Your Honor, I believe we're jointly proposing Wednesday, which is the 28th at 10 a.m. As Your Honor is aware, Your Honor will, although the sentence is mandatory, Your Honor will be called upon to assess to assign a parole eligibility date of between 15 and 25 years. For that reason, essentially the Commonwealth deferred to the defense on date to the extent that they want to be prepared to make that argument. We'll be prepared on Wednesday.
Okay, so Mr. Shapiro, then you will have some input on that issue of the parole eligibility. I don't know if you're going to be submitting something at that on Wednesday, so whether it's a sentencing memorandum or whatever you'd like to submit to assist me in that. Can you have that ready by Wednesday?
Yes.
Okay. So I will take off, step off the bench with the instructions I've given to the media. We'll be in recess.
All rise, please. Just a few words. Today, there is no justice for Bella Bond. The verdict sets Rochelle Bond free, and she's going to walk out of jail today a free woman, whereas an innocent man is going to prison for the rest of his life for a crime that she committed. We, of course, are going to appeal. We will be filing the appeal right away. We think there are a number of issues that are likely to result in a reversal of this conviction.
Can you speak to any of those issues?
No. But as I say, the verdict was a travesty of justice. It sets the criminal free and sends an innocent person to prison. Thank you.
Mr. Shapiro, do you think it had anything to do with that instruction that you had objected to?
Would Mr. McCarthy's family like to say anything while you're here?
Just a lot of humility there. They can't give it. All right, good. First off, I want to express my gratitude to the jurors for their consideration over these past 3 weeks of trial. It was clear to all of us that they gave the evidence all of the attention that it deserved, and that's all we can ask of any jury. I also want to thank the men and women of my office, the Massachusetts State Police, particularly Captain Jack Lannon, Lieutenant Bob Murphy, and Trooper Dan Herman, who was the lead investigator on this case, all behind me, as well as the Winthrop Police Department and other law enforcement partners for the extraordinary efforts that they put into this case and that they went to give an innocent child back her identity, and who fought so hard to see that those who hurt her, who betrayed her, and who failed her were held to account. I know there was intense focus during this trial on Rochelle Bond, but witness testimony was only part of the evidence. Rochelle Bond's testimony was clearly valuable and credible because it was corroborated by independent evidence that she didn't know that we would obtain. Michael McCarthy's phone records, his text messages, weights from his father's shop, and the very location where Bella's body was discarded all support her account. We don't take any joy here. Every lost life is heartbreaking and tragic, but anytime someone so young and so innocent is lost, it magnifies the pain and the sorrow to awful proportions. An innocent life was not merely snuffed out, but callously discarded, and that offends everyone who believes that every human life is precious and deserving of love and respect. For 85 days, some really great people went to heroic lengths to give Bella back her name. And for the past 3 weeks, and actually from the beginning, Assistant District Attorney David Deacon, Assistant District Attorney Hella Sash, and victim advocate Kara Hayes acted as her voice. I am extraordinarily proud of their efforts and those of everyone who worked on behalf of little Bella Bond. By the time of her death, every adult in Bella's life was distracted from her care and well-being by drug addiction. Rochelle Bond's addiction in particular was enabled and exploited by the defendant. To anyone who says that drug dealing is a victimless, non-violent crime, I would point to this case. Bella was a homicide victim, but she was just as surely a victim of addiction and desperation in the very people she was supposed to rely on for love, for care, and for protection. As prosecutors, we wish more than anyone that every case came to us with upstanding witnesses, strong forensic evidence, and a motive unique to the offender. But real life doesn't work that way. Bella Bond was submerged in water for more than 3 weeks, and that washed away the forensic evidence we all wish we could have had. We didn't know who she was for almost 3 months, so it was unrealistic to think that investigators would find much forensic evidence in the apartment where she lived and where she was killed. The people who occupied Bella's world were almost all in the throes of heroin addiction. And that's who the jury saw, and that's who they heard. They are not witnesses we would have wanted, but we don't get to choose our witnesses. It is because of all these obstacles that, regardless of the verdict, I am so extraordinarily proud of the prosecutors, the police, the victim advocates, and other professionals who really took this little girl to heart and did everything they could for her. I want to say one more thing, and this is very important. It's not just because you're all assembled here. I want to thank you, the members of the media, for the attention that you gave to this case from the very beginning. And I especially want to thank a number of reporters and editors who really went to extraordinary lengths and did just some really outstanding reporting in that long period when we all were worried and wondered who that precious little girl was. We didn't forget her, and neither did you. And to those journalists, especially, thank you for the quality and the care of your work. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer a few questions.
Dan, how do you just speak for Rochelle Bond? A lot of people watching this are not happy that she will get time served here. How do you feel about that deal that you entered into? Rochelle Bond was the primary witness here.
Well, we, there's no question that Rochelle Bond, had so many complicated issues in her life. I mean, she was in the throes of heroin addiction. She's had a very difficult and tragic life, and a lot of people don't like her. I mean, I think that's pretty clear. But her testimony, and when we first interviewed her, when the troopers interviewed her, when David interviewed her, it had the ring of credibility and truth to it, and we were able to corroborate it. Now, under our system of justice, as I say this at community meetings a lot, when I'm talking to people about, unsolved cases, for example, everything that happens here for accountability requires evidence. And after interviewing Rochelle Bond and analyzing what she had to say, and then checking it and corroborating against some of the things we did have in the case, the cell site location data, the text messages from McCarthy, where the body was disposed of and how closely connected Michael McCarthy was to that, the weights that certainly linked him to the disposal of the little girl's body, all were corroborated. So in order for us to proceed, we felt very strongly and secure in our belief that Michael McCarthy was responsible. And to do that, we entered into a cooperation agreement, but it required her to speak truthfully, to testify truthfully, and we believe that she did that. She acted reprehensibly. I think we can all agree on that. But as I said in my prepared remarks, you know, we don't choose our witnesses. We rely on the witnesses that observed, you know, facts that will ultimately be put into evidence.
Shapiro continued to say just a moment ago that she is the real killer, and it is a man who walked it.
I don't think there was a shred of credible evidence that she was the real killer, and I think that was Mr. Shapiro's theory. It was a theory that the jury rejected. And, you know, it's one thing to make those allegations. I mean, the defendant, as you know, is under no obligation to prove his innocence. But, you know, Mr. Shapiro makes this allegation in his opening statement. I think the jury was like, essentially, where's the evidence of that? And there was no evidence of it. And, you know, as I said, it was clear to us that Rochelle Bond loved the little girl, but at the same time, she also let that little girl down terribly. But that doesn't make her a murderer. Michael McCarthy was responsible for her death, and the jury spoke.
Can you speak to your decision to add manslaughter to the list of charges? Because some people saw that as a signal that your office was not confident in the evidence.
You know, I've been doing this now for more than 30 years, and in most homicide cases that are tried, the jury has all three options: murder one, murder two, and manslaughter. And based, you know, on all of the evidence, the jury could have concluded there was credible evidence that they could have concluded that this was manslaughter and not murder in the second degree. And that's up to the jury. It's, you know, but it was an option for them, and I think that Judge Sanders made the right call by putting that before the jury.
In the end, are any of you even sure, or that you can go to sleep at night and know why this child was killed?
You know, that's always the perplexing question for us who work in this arena. So, you know, murder doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. And probably more so when you're talking about a baby, a child, a completely innocent little victim who didn't deserve this to happen to her. So, you know, as the law does not require us to prove motive, as I mentioned in my prepared remarks, it would have been, you know, great if we had a very strong motive to put in front of the jury. David put in front of the jury the motive that, you know, there was this issue about he thought that the little Bella may have been a demon of some sort. But you know what? We never know. We'll never know what was in his heart and his mind. And we're not required to prove that. But what we are required to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, which we did, that he was responsible for her death. And that's why the jury spoke clearly today, and I want to thank them for their verdict.
What's next for Rochelle Bond? Sentencing? Can you tell us a little bit about the timeline of the
She'll be sentenced in the next week or two. You know, she's not avoiding accountability. She's been in prison herself for close to 2 years now on the charge of accessory after the fact. That's what we believe the credible evidence proved, and she will be held accountable for that.
She'll be released after sentencing. She's not released today.
She's not released today, no.
Who has she found out the verdict? I was wondering how she learned
That I don't know. Okay. And again, thank you all for being here and for the attention that you gave this case throughout the trial. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
One last thing, Michelle, is there anything, I mean, I think there could be some legitimate concerns about what happens to her next out in the streets. Is your office under any obligation to help her in terms of perhaps transitioning to a rehab facility or further drug treatment?
So she's represented by a very capable counsel who we've been working closely with, and it's, I think I speak for everyone behind me, our hope and prayers with Rochelle that she can get on the path to recovery here, as others have been able to do. You know, that's our hope for her. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You guys need names and spellings. So,
And